Okay, so the origins of Beast Modulus. God, where do I even start with this? Well, I'd say that it's been about 8 years in the making. Started probably around 2004. I started just putting together different songs from different bands that I was in over the, 13, 14 years of playing. Maybe it was a song that never went anywhere, maybe it was a drum part that no one was interested in, maybe it was a song that just never got recorded. And the first guy that came to mind, once again this is around 2004, was Paul Webb, guitarist, bass player, drummer extraordinaire, multi-instrumentalist, super talented dude, plays in Spickle, great instrumental band in New Orleans, and a series of other bands. And so I recorded 4 songs, I believe, with a 4-track cassette recorder and a stereo mic in my bedroom. And those were the initial recordings from that. And then Katrina happened. I ended up in New York. At the time, all I had was just like three rough recordings. Luckily, I had been talking to Dan Larcella, who was the bass player of the Bad Off, my band prior to Katrina, in New Orleans, and he was interested in it. He said it sounds cool. We got to find a guitarist. It was probably a year, maybe 2 years, easily, I guess, where we were talking about doing something with it. And he had the idea to enlist Steven Shepard, who is a guitarist in Lafayette. I had played, my old band, Atomic Funk, had played with his band at the time, Ice Pick Revival, like at Jimmy's in New Orleans, uptown, like in 2000 or something, So it had been a really long time since I had seen him. I hadn't spoken to him. I never really knew him that well, but I knew he was a great guitarist. He was also in another band, Collapsar, and he was just a phenomenal guitarist. And it made sense because he was like the amalgamation of like Dennis D'Amore of Voivod and Dave Knudsen of like Botch or something. So I was like, that makes sense. So I found him through Facebook, and he said he was interested. So then it was on me to re-record all of those original 4-track recordings. I wasn't even totally sure that Steven was fully going to commit to it, because in his minimal way of communicating, he had said, yeah, I'll check him out. And that was kind of the last I had heard of it. And but apparently he was sitting there and learning them. So it was this strange sort of virtual, sit at a computer, hit send with this drum recording that I'd been laboring over, send it out into the cosmos, not quite sure what's going to happen to it. Steven would then record guitars over it, and then it would be the unfortunate position that Dan had, that he would have to sort of work with the drum parts and tonally and sonically work with everything that Steven was doing, which is obviously a bit of a task. So from there, it was like I had a couple more songs. I'd sent those out, and once we had like 7 or 8 songs, I said, you know what, I think it's time to book a flight and go down to New Orleans and try to make this thing materialize. This virtual band at some point needs to actually materialize, and we need to see how it's going to work out. And it was interesting because I hadn't even spoken to Steven. It had all been just sort of impersonal communication via email and whatnot. And so I hadn't spoken to him. I hadn't heard his voice in probably 12 years. I didn't speak to him at any point during any of the demoing of these songs. So it wasn't until I got down to New Orleans, the day of we were practicing, where I called him on the phone. And I'm excited about playing this stuff. It's so bizarre, man, that like this virtual band is going to materialize, and we got to actually try to play these songs now. And then from there we had to go into CRS Studios at the big wooden warehouse and try to bang these things out. And we only had 2 rehearsals prior to the gig, which was originally supposed to be at Siberia, but they lost their music permit. Then it was going to be at the Circle Bar. They also lost their permit, so then we ended up at the Hi-Ho, which was just about a half block away from Siberia. So we ended up still on St. Claude, amazingly enough. And the 2 rehearsals went amazing. And part of the idea with these songs was we had to, or I felt like we had to get a particular set and play that exact set and be rehearsing that exact set leading up to it because of the minimal rehearsal time that we were going to have and because of the sort of the complexity of the songs. So luckily, you know, Dan and Steven were machines and really banged it out, possibly better than I did when it came gig time. But it was definitely amazing after 8 years for this sort of germ of an idea that I had to manifest itself out into the world. And I couldn't be happier with the outcome. I think it was really amazing, and it was very well received, and it was great to play at home with my homeboys. And it was just an amazing time, and I'm glad that after, you know, once again about 8 or 9 years that this thing that is now Beast Modulus has finally come to fruition. It's been quite a journey.